Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome. I hope you are doing well today. Thank you for tuning. Oh, sorry, a little bit of an echo in my headphones all of a sudden. Apologies. Okay, guys, I hope you're doing well. As some folks are doing, please say hello. Let us know where you're from. We always like to see who's coming in from around the world. Thank you guys for taking the time to do this. Hopefully, today this will be pretty interesting to you. We're going to be talking about AI, obviously. Little preface, I am no AI expert. It's just not who I am. I have done some research for you guys, though. I have been talking to some folks here at Italki who know a lot about AI and things like that. Hopefully, I'll be able to share some of that knowledge with you, share some tips. Today, we're going to talk about a lot of different topics in AI as well. Now, guys, to get started, remember our guidelines here, right? First one, let's be respectful and polite. I'm going to be respectful and polite to you guys. I hope you will do the same in return. With that as well, let's respect people's privacy. Don't share your information. Don't share other people's personal information, things like that. Obviously, this is on YouTube. The whole world can see this. You don't want to be putting that sort of information out there in the world. Three, if you have specific issues or unsolved lesson problems, something like that, not the place for it here. You want to contact customer service. They're the people who are going to be able to help you take care of that, okay? And then finally, four, any questions regarding business intelligence. Sometimes people want to know about the algorithms for the search pages and things like that. We're going to ignore those kinds of questions. Those just won't get answered here. As it sort of says down here at the bottom, specific feedback about features and stuff, the most I'm going to be able to do is be like, hey, cool. Like, that's good feedback, and we'll look into it. I'm not going to be able to give you solutions or answers to questions like that here either. Nice. We have people, Siem Reap, Cambodia. Okay. China, France, the UK. Nice. Dublin, Ireland. Nice. 15 degrees C in Dublin. That's not so bad. It's about 35 here right now, and we're worried about a typhoon coming to Shanghai, so that'll be interesting in the next couple of days. All right, guys, let's keep going. If you don't already know, I think a few folks here will probably be new. I am Eason. Eason is this guy here. I have my bachelor's in science in biology, master's in education, some TEFL C, a bunch of different Cambridge certifications and things like that. I have been in the online education industry for about 15 years, going on 16 now, here in about a couple weeks. And with that, I have been a teacher trainer, product manager, supplier operations manager in education for a lot of years now. So that's kind of my background for those who might be new to our webinars. Ben asks a nice little question here. We'll pop this up just really quick. Yes, so this is on YouTube, Ben. And that means after we're done here, this will be a video on YouTube. You can come back to this link. You can watch the full thing later. Cool. Sunny and cold South Africa. Yeah, it's winter in South Africa, so it'll probably be cold. All right, guys, some things that this webinar covers. First thing I'm going to talk about are some misconceptions. There's a lot of sort of, not necessarily misinformation out in the world about AI, but we sort of hear that term, and because of science fiction, because of sort of the populace, we have sort of these ideas of what that means. That's not necessarily true, is what I'll say. With that, guys, we'll also talk about education in AI. Obviously, we're all teachers here, so we want to know about that specifically. Then we'll get into using AI for success. And then towards the end, hopefully we'll have plenty of time to do some Q&A, answer questions in general, and hopefully about the presentation as well. Okay, a few terms that we want to cover before we start talking about AI. These are common terms when we talk about AI. I I want you guys to be familiar with them just so when I say prompts, you kind of know what I mean. With that, we have things that are called large language models, LLM. That's going to be the AI that we're going to focus on today. That's probably the one that you've heard the most about in recent times. That's things like ChatGPT, Bard, Goose AI. These are all large language models. There are other forms of AI like visual AIs like Midjourney and things like that as well. And then with that, another word you're going to want to know is algorithm. Now, a lot of people talk to us about search algorithm, right? And they want to know that search algorithm. They want to know how that works. With that, the word algorithm, as I kind of wrote here, is just fancy math. It's a way, for a computer to do mathematics to reach a decision. With that, there's a lot to do with weights and percentages of values and things like that. There's a lot of sort of if-then statements. If this, if not this, then this. But basically, AI sort of boils down to very, very fancy algorithms in math. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And then prompts, that's what we give AI, whether it's visual AI, whether it's like a large language model like ChatGPT, right? The prompt is what we give the AI to do something for us, whatever that information is, okay? And then hallucinations is what we call it when AI gets things wrong. So we'll talk about this in a moment, but AI can't think. It's not how it works. So it can't know the truth and tell you opposite. So when AI gives you the wrong answer, the wrong information, we don't really say that it's lying because lying assumes that it knows what's correct. It doesn't know what's correct, so we call it hallucination. Basically, hallucination is when it gives something, a false answer back to you. Oh, Italy, Cameroon, nice. All right. So the big question that's always on a lot of teachers' minds, big question that we see from a lot of different sources, will AI, and in particular, will language models, those large language models, replace teachers? Short answer, no. Longer answer, still no. So AI isn't a human, and humans still know that. Even though AI has gotten a lot better, ChatGPT can pass the Turing test and things like this. A lot of people still yeah, there's things a little off here. There's something a little wrong here. And many people still want a human to learn from. It's still something sort of innate in us that we want that partnership. With that, also no, AI isn't perfect, right? I was just talking about hallucinations. And the thing with AI is it can't, if I give a student the wrong information and then I go learn the right information, I can come back to that student and say, hey, look, the thing I told you last class is wrong. And let me fix that for you. AI is never going to do that because AI doesn't have that sense that it got something wrong in that way. And then no, also because a lot of people just see this as a valuable tool, right? This is a tool for use. It's really not a replacement for skilled professionals. So when people talk about AI replacing things, it's more, a tool to be used, not a replacement for professionals. By the way, guys, that is a nice if then else. We were talking about algorithms earlier. There's a little diagram of some if then and else up there at the top for you. Cool. Now, guys, really quickly, some misconceptions, some problems with AI. This is actually sort of how large language models work. This diagram over to the side, you put in a text input, the large language model does some alignment, does some algorithms, adds a little random temperature from some training texts and things like that, and then it'll spit out a text output. We'll talk a little bit about how it actually does that here in a moment. Go into a little detail with some language models. Now, I've already kind of mentioned this, but one of the misconceptions, right, is this idea that AI thinks, and it really doesn't. Not the way that humans traditionally think about thinking. It sort of takes an input, it measures it, and then it runs it through a bunch of calculations and says, this is the, based on my algorithm, based on the weights and the values and the training, this is the best response to that input. And then it gives it back. There's no really like, hey, let me stop and think about what this person said to me and reply back. It's more, hey, I'm going to measure this, give values to each of these words, and then spit out the values on the other side of the math. Okay. Another misconception is that it learns by itself, and it doesn't, especially large language models. Large language models, they're constantly undergoing training by humans. ChatGPT had a huge team of people who sat there and would give ChatGPT a prompt. Then ChatGPT would give them an answer. They would look at it and say, was that a good answer or a bad answer? And that would adjust. If they gave it bad answer, that would adjust the weights. If they gave it a good answer, once again, the computer's adjusting the algorithm, adjusting the weights of the words and stuff like that. So it's not really, once again, it's not really learning by itself. And then, as I kind of mentioned, right, one of the problems with AI is that it hallucinates. And as I mentioned, it doesn't know when it hallucinates. It doesn't know when it's telling you something wrong. It's just going by its math and giving you an answer. And then also, one of the problems, right? AI can't feel. It can give you a proximity of feeling, right? It can, if you tell it you're sad, it'll tell you that's sad too, and it feels sad for you, but it doesn't really feel sad, right? Teachers can sympathize with their students. They can understand context. They can understand subtle meanings and things like that. So all of that is definitely where we trump AI. With that too, guys, it's in kind of fine print. Can't remember the source where we found this, but just to give you an idea, ChatGPT was trained on about 500 gigabytes of text data. So if you think about a text file, even really long ones are a couple of kilobytes. This was trained on about 500 gigabytes. That's billions of pages of text. Basically billions of books, all that kind of stuff. And then it was actually run through supercomputers for the equivalent of about 300 years. So a bunch of supercomputers running simultaneously for the equivalent of about 300 years. And that's about how much it took. And with that, ChatGPT made about 170 billion connections between words. So it said, this word sometimes is before this word, so there's a connection there, right? And then it built all those connections. It built weights and things like that for those connections as well. Stony, nice. Thanks, guys. Okay, now a little bit of research for you guys on what students think about AI. With this, I do want to give credit to edweek.org. They were the ones, they published an article about this. They are the ones who sort of did this research. I want to share it with you because I do feel like it's valuable. We didn't do this research with our own students here, though. I want you to understand this is also, a global issue, things that everyone around the world is sort of thinking about. So with that, because of the hallucinations and limited access to copyrighted works, a lot of students feel like AI is unreliable. If you go in and you're like, hey, give me a summary of this book, it's going to, AI is going to tell you I can't because that's copyrighted material and I don't have access to it, right? What'll happen sometimes is as you sort of change and sort of force it to do that, it'll give you some proximity, but usually that's like a hallucination, right? So students feel like AI is often unreliable. They also see the biases. There are, especially with like visual AIs and stuff like that, there are definitely biases that come up pretty quickly when you start searching for images and things. There's also certain biases in responses and topics and images. So that's something to keep in mind too for students. Students are like, yeah, this has biases. And then a lot of students just feel like, and this is what I was kind of talking about earlier with the, will it replace humans? They just feel like you really can't match a human, right? Once again, it lacks context, it lacks meaning. Students can feel that. They also feel like that starts to impede their learning. It can damage their process, things like that. See a couple of questions. We'll get to a question here in a moment. And then the last point kind of on here, a good point for AI is it can help sort of help sort of inspire you in that, like, sometimes staring at a blank page is daunting, and AI can kind of help fill that blank page and give you a place to sort of start. And as Eli sort of asked here, what kind of biases and why? There's a lot of reasons for biases. Some of it is a reflection on our own cultures. There's an example with Midjourney that's pretty famous nowadays. I'll kind of quote that. Midjourney is great, by the way. I'm not saying don't use it, but I remember like a month or two ago, there was sort of this controversy with Midjourney, where if you typed in like picture of CEO, right? You think like chief executive officer, and it would give you a lot of pictures of kind of like older Caucasian gentlemen with, you know, light colored skin and light colored hair and blue eyes and stuff like this. And then if you were like, and it's like, I just asked you for a picture of like a CEO, and then you're giving me all these sort of Caucasian guys. And if I ask you a picture for a worker, then you give me all these sort of, you know, darker complexion people and stuff like that. So there were biases like that. Now they're working on correcting things like that. It has a lot to do with, once again, it can also be a reflection of our culture. If you go do an image search, like, are you going to find more pictures of Caucasians as CEOs? Does that say something about our culture and things like that? There are sort of those kinds of things. With, like I said, with image, with language models, there's just can be, you know, based on like what language you are talking about, there can be better or worse performances and things like that as well. Cool. Let's keep going. Now, coming around to what researchers, what teachers, what other people think about AI, and then we'll get on to some other things as well. With this, once again, researchers, teachers, this can be a useful tool. The things that we get from even Italki teachers who are using some of the AI that we have now, right, is like, yeah, this is a really nice tool. Some people, though, feel like, hey, sometimes this is actually really difficult to use. When you're talking about prompts and things like that, sometimes you have to be kind of careful with your prompts in order to get the right sort of answers back from the AI, back from the AI and things. So it can be sort of difficult. And in fact, as I kind of mentioned here, a lot of people now in the last 6 months or so are actually becoming specialists in writing prompts. Basically, like, people are developing the skill, and their new sort of marketable skill is, I write AI prompts. I talk to the AI to get the right answer back for you. So I design these prompts so that you get the right responses back. Once again, teachers are also saying like, yeah, it just can't match humans, right? They have that same sort of feedback, and just like students as well, this was common amongst researchers and teachers too. It can help with inspiring, right? It can help us go from 0 to 1. You know, it's very good at that. Like, hey, I need to do this lesson. What's an idea for this lesson? It'll spit out an idea, and then you can kind of work from there. You can kind of work that problem. You can kind of develop that sort of idea out into something that would actually suit you and serve your purpose and things like that. With that, guys, these are some common prompts that we have used. I've used some of these personally. I do highly recommend you can screenshot those 3 prompts over there, or you can watch this video later. These are some that are sort of nicely written that I've used personally, and then I've seen others use something very, very similar for lesson planning and describing things and giving notes to students and things like that as well. So these are definitely some nice prompts for you guys. Cool. Let's see. Let's kind of keep going. So we'll talk a little bit about these AI tools for success in a minute. Anyone using AI to create class whiteboards? I don't know. I know there are some AI whiteboard software out there. I know there are different like sort of whiteboard apps and how they integrate some AI ideas. But yeah, I don't know if anyone's using AI to just create some sort of whiteboard from scratch. There are plenty of apps out there that'll do presentations and things like that. We're actually going to talk about some tools right now. Yeah, as Sean sort of pointed out, like, yeah, potential for for a very good time-saving tool. And that's what we're currently developing. Um, and that's actually what the AI lesson summary is. It's a very nice sort of time-saving tool that helps us just quickly and easily sort of serve our students in a nice way. So we'll go ahead and start talking a little bit about that. So as some of you, hopefully there's some people from the beta test here in the meeting today. If not, like, hopefully they'll see this later. But if you guys are trying out, if you're not trying out yet, we do have the AI lesson summary. Basically what it does is it takes the notes, any messages, it works with the classroom in the notes section of the classroom. It also works with like any messages during the class time on italki, but you can also cut and paste your notes from like Google Docs or a Word document or anything really. You can cut and paste those notes in there. And then what this is going to do is it takes those notes from class and it turns it into, as it sort of suggests, a nice summary for students. There are explanations, there are exercises, all of that kind of stuff. And it basically takes sort of what might be sort of a random stream of notes and tries to sort of organize them and provide example sentences and all this sort of material for students. With that, guys, we're hoping to sort of expand that out here pretty soon. There's some things there's some things that we would like to fix with it first, and then we'll try to release it out to a wider audience. With that, guys, a couple of other tools that you can consider using. You don't have to use, but I would kind of consider using. I'm not going to, oh, by the way, it says down here in fine print at the bottom, ESIN makes no claims or endorses any of the above mentioned AI tools. They are just examples, except for the lesson summary. I will endorse the AI lesson summary for my copy, but any other tools, if I mention a name, it's just, that's a specific example of that tool. I'm not saying that's the best one or that's the one you should get. It's just, that's the one that's sort of most associated with that tool. So in this case, like with quiz generating tools, tools like Yippee, Yippity. Yippity can quickly sort of create quizzes, exercises based on many different sources. So you can like upload notes and stuff like that once again and be like, hey, give me a quiz for my students to take. And Yippity can do that really quick for you. That's going to save you time, right? As we were kind of talking earlier, right? A big advantage of this is saving time while still generating quality material for your students. That's one of the biggest, I see as one of the biggest benefits for teachers. You get to have quality materials and you get to save yourself a lot of time, which means you can provide these quality materials to students easier, means you can provide them more things so they're enhancing their experience while you're also saving time and effort. Now, guys, chatbots, I've been talking a lot about them today, large language models or chatbots. With this just kind of helps students get more practice. And a lot of students have already discovered this, right? I have plenty of stories of students using ChatGPT to practice English or ChatGPT to practice, Italian or any of the other languages, right? They type to the chatbot in their learning language, it types back. There are also tools out there that you can use to translate that into speech and also to translate your speech into the text. So you can actually talk and it'll write it out for the chatbot and then the chatbot will answer back. Once again, those are just sort of cheap, easy, sort of quick, 15-minute, language sort of partner kind of thing. Once again, not replacing students, not replacing teachers, but that idea that like, hey, I can get in some extra practice, I can get in some extra speaking and stuff like that with a chatbot. It's not perfect, but it's maybe better than zero. And then as I kind of mentioned earlier, when someone was talking about whiteboards, there are plenty of tools out there that will take notes, things like that you have and turn them into slides. We were experimenting with some in the beginning too. We're like, hey, give me a A1 level Japanese class, and it would, it populates it with pictures. It gives you, it was not perfect. It was pretty far from perfect. Um, but there are things out there like that you can sort of like, hey, give me the basics of this, and then from there I can do some changes, work the rest of it and kind of get a full PowerPoint, a full slide deck with a little bit of effort. With that as well, like I mentioned here, like PowerPoint Speaker, there's lots of different content tools out there. You can use Midjourney if you're just looking for, some people just want certain pictures that look a certain way that might be hard to find on a Google search. It's like, oh, I don't use Photoshop. Well, Midjourney can kind of help you out there and things like that. So all of these tools are out there to sort of save you time, to sort of save you effort. And then hopefully, once again, on the other side, where the success sort of comes for you, is you're able to provide an enhanced experience for your students. You're able to provide them better materials quicker and easier with these things, and therefore increase their likelihood to come back, their likelihood to be satisfied and continue. Cool. Can I be sure that I'm not committing copyright infringement when I'm using AI tools? I don't know the rule with AI. I think there's actually a lawsuit going right now because a lot of the materials like Midjourney was trained on might have been from copyrighted sources. I'm not sure what's going on with that. I won't speak too much on that because I'm not an expert on that. However, to sort of answer a underlying question, if you are using an image or a video or anything for your personal use in a class as a teacher, I know at least in the U.S. there's like a rule that you can use copyrighted materials for that specific use, and it's not copyright infringement, even if it's copyrighted material, because you're using it sort of in a live situation as a classroom teaching aid. I would have to go find the exact wording of that law to give you more information, but there is something like that, at least in the U.S. Not sure about in the EU or other parts of the world, but I think there's kind of the way the law is written, it sort of protects teachers from copyright infringement. Cool. Let's see. This, I think, is kind of coming up here a little bit, so I'll go ahead and answer this. How can I be a member of the beta test group on Italki? So right now, beta test members were sort of chosen based on their behaviors, and we wanted to give people who use like the classroom a lot and take a lot of notes and things like this kind of the first crack at this because they were going to sort of test it the best. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to be opening this up wider and wider as it becomes a better tool and as it's better prepared and works better and stuff like that. So yeah, just kind of keep that in mind. We are going to open this up and people, the AI lesson summary won't be a really long beta probably. So it'll probably open up to people pretty shortly. I can't give an exact date because that's sort of dependent on the tech team and things like that and their efforts. Yes, Karen, copyright is tricky. I don't want to speak too much on it, but like I said, I'd have to go find the law. I know I've read it somewhere, but there's ways that teachers can use copyrighted material. Yeah, cool. All right, guys, let's kind of keep going. Okay, I know it's still in beta, but I did want to talk a little bit about the key to using sort of the AI lesson summary. There's some tips for people who are using it, and when you get a chance to use it, these tips will still be good for you guys. So obviously, the AI lesson summary can't really generate from zero. So if you have zero notes or zero information, it's going to have a hard time creating anything for you. So you do want to write down notes. You want to write down keywords. If you were writing down example sentences already, that can be good too. It can also generate example sentences, so that's not too bad. But more, it's the idea that you want to give it some material. You want to give it something to build a class summary from. It can use all this from Italki Classroom. It can also use this from other materials. You just have to cut and paste them in. But obviously, kind of the more stuff there is for the students, the more the summary is sort of going to build it up. Okay. As I mentioned here, the second point, and I mentioned it again, you can cut and paste from other sources. So we've seen some feedback from people like, oh, I don't use the classroom that much, so I can't use this. Yes, you can. Actually, you just have to cut and paste wherever you took your notes, whatever materials you use. You just got to kind of get them into the lesson summary. There's a little box where you can add those in. Um, Make sure that you look and potentially edit the summary. As I mentioned a couple of times, right? AI is not perfect. It makes mistakes. It's it's human that way, right? It's human in that it makes mistakes and it misspeaks a little bit sometimes. So it's always a good idea that you want to kind of take a final look at it, edit things out, put things in, whatever you want to kind of do there. You want to make sure that it is going to be okay for your students. Okay, guys, with that as well, structuring your notes can kind of help improve the quality. So the AI is able to sort of look through the random notes and pull out what are keywords and pull out what are, grammar points and things like that. But it helps the AI if you already have those sort of organized a little bit for yourself. So if you kind of have a section with your students where you put all your vocab words and then you have sort of example sentences along the way or something, that's going to help just improve the quality, make it, there's going to be less editing and things like that for you on the other side of that as well. And then finally, as I kind of been mentioning a little bit, when you use the AI lesson summary, you can just write things like past perfect tense. And then the AI will give you, when it comes to it, the AI will give you an explanation of what past perfect tense is. It'll probably give you a couple of example sentences as well. Like these sentences are in past perfect tense. This is what past perfect tense is. Things like that. Okay, cool. Now, guys, I've seen some questions and things like that. We'll get to them in just a moment. A reminder, though, I'm going to open it up to any questions. We'll go probably for maybe like another 10 minutes with questions. I usually try to keep these around 45 minutes or so. With that, guys, remember, respectful and polite. Community guidelines are still in place. Once again, respect your privacy, respect other people's privacy. Don't share private information. And then also, once again, if you have specific issues or unresolved issues, please contact customer support team. I can't solve issues for you here in a webinar. And then also, again, any kind of questions regarding business intelligence, I'm just going to have to go ahead and ignore. All right, let me kind of scroll back up here. So maybe there weren't a whole lot of questions. I saw a lot of things. Here's a question. We are always talking about notes or chat messages also work. Yes. So, Sosiako. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name wrong. My apologies. I'm bad with some names. You can have the notes section, but it'll also use the italki messages section. And then once again, you can use outside sources as well. So as long as it's sort of text and it's happening during class, italki lesson summary can handle that. Cool. Yeah, so as Sean kind of writes in the group chat, I won't pop it up, but as Sean sort of writes in the group chat, you do need to edit it. It's not perfect. We know it's not perfect. AI, as I was kind of saying in the very beginning, right? AI has issues. So do always kind of take a look at it and make sure what you're sending your students is good. By the way, students can also create these. So with the lesson summary, students can go in and click and say, create me a lesson summary. The difference for students is they can't actually edit it. So only teachers can edit it. And then that's sort of the benefit to you guys is you can go back in and like edit for them and stuff. Is it possible to ask in other languages, example, French? Yes, so actually like like if you're talking about AI lesson summary, it works with quite a few languages. I will say because it's AI and it's built off of text and stuff that are out in the world, it it works with other languages, but there's sometimes more issues with other languages. I don't think French is necessarily one. I think it, unfortunately for Japanese teachers who might be here today, I've noticed even like experimenting with it that sometimes there's a couple of issues with Japanese. Once again, it's this idea that you would want to go back and edit it, but you can do things in other languages. It's not just English. It's not just English. Cool. Um, cool. Let's see. Here's a question. Any tips for Zoom users and use some magic AI tools to summarize classes? I think Zoom has actually had for a long time. Not an AI, but Zoom has like a audio transcript. So you can actually set up your Zoom to create an audio transcript of your lesson. You could fill something like that into your AI. I think Zoom is also coming up with some AI tools, but those are more like designed to be like meeting notes, not necessarily like lesson notes. But I could be wrong there. I'm not, I'm not on Zoom's team. So that's just kind of what I've heard down the grapevine. Um, so yeah, but you could, like I said, you could actually take that audio transcript from Zoom and put it in the lesson summary. Something like that would generate probably a pretty good summary for you as well, if you wanted to kind of combine tools. Can I take notes in a language which is not English, and is it written in a different way? As I was kind of mentioning, I think about the French, you can take notes in all languages, and it'll take those and it'll be like, okay, cool, this class was in French, and here's all the French notes, and here's all the new French ideas and stuff like that, and it'll do that just fine. Like I said, there are sometimes more errors in other languages, but it doesn't mean you have to only use English. Yeah, and same thing, Tassim, like yeah, Arabic it'll do as well. Cool. Um, Vanessa asks, how can we convince them not to use these tools for learning, let alone as a beginner? There's always going to be people out there who kind of, it's just like we always have people on Italki who are like, oh, I just want to read the articles and be in the community and ask questions and have someone fix my grammar in the community. I don't want to pay for a class. So you're always going to have some folks who are always looking for sort of the easiest, sort of cheapest way to kind of do this thing. And they're going to gravitate towards these sort of tools. Once again, it's more about like expressing to people and to your students, right? That once again, these are tools and they aren't a replacement for a qualified professional, right? They're not a replacement for a teacher. They're just a tool that can be used to help along the way. But people's learning is going to benefit a lot better if they're still having that professional aspect to their classes. Will there be a section not accessible to AI? I mean, things we need to keep private. If you're in the classroom sending messages back and forth, the AI is going to see all that, but you can go into the lesson summary and delete those. So I'm going to assume this is more like, oh, hey, like, what time do you want to have your next class? Oh, we can have it at this time or something like that. Those kinds of things you can go back through and delete. I wouldn't be sharing private stuff in the Italki classroom or in Zoom or anything necessarily. So, yeah. Um, So Dorith here, do you suggest pasting the notes from the lesson into Italki Classroom in order to get the lesson summary? You don't have to paste them into the classroom. So you actually access the lesson summary from the lesson page. So when you go and you go into your like previous lessons and you'll see your lessons kind of listed out. And then there's like the lesson detail page. You'll actually see the AI summary from there. So you don't have to go into the classroom. The classroom is integrated with the summary. So if you use the classroom, the summary can pull those notes from there and create the summary for you. But if you're going to cut and paste things in and you don't use the classroom, you can do that from the lessons page. You don't have to go into the classroom. Cool. Um, oh, yeah, so I already kind of offered the questions about AI for all languages. AI can be used for all languages for the most part. I mean, I'm sure there's some maybe some very sort of rare or small languages that it might not support very well, but for sort of the larger, more global languages, it's usually pretty okay. Um, cool, cool, cool. Um, So, Audrey, I'll talk a little bit about this one because I didn't go over this very much. I did talk a little bit about prompts, and I gave you guys a couple of prompts. There is a lot of information. It's all very new, it's not like super, super tested, but there's a lot of information out there on creating prompts for AI. As I said, a lot of people are actually, that's like becoming now a job almost. It's almost a job for some people to be like, yeah, I write AI prompts. So there's actually lots of material. I don't have any link today, but doing a quick search, just like type in like, how do I write AI prompts? You're going to pull up some stuff that's going to like help you learn how to do that a little bit better. Cool. Um, Annie here is a summary generated automatically. Depends on what you mean by automatic. If you mean like it's just magically one day it's there, not quite. You do have to go in and you click a button that says create summary. So if you're using italki Classroom and you click that button that says create summary, it'll pull the notes from that class and generate a summary for you. And that way it is automatic. It does do all that work. It just pulls the notes, automatically populates a summary for you guys. If you're not using italki Classroom, then you would want to provide it with your notes, but it doesn't just automatically make a summary of every class you and the student have. You do have to go in and say, I want the summary. There's a little, click the button and it says create summary. So yeah. Um, and then another question. It's okay. So yeah, so I'll probably get your name right by the end. I have trouble with TH sounds, but anyway, I'm sorry. When we do release, right, once again, the AI summary, the AI lesson summary is in beta. So there's only a handful of teachers right now that are kind of testing it out. Once it's open, it'll be open to everyone. So it's not a teacher tutor thing. It's just an italki teachers and students thing. And then once again, students can actually access it too. So there are groups of students who are in the beta test who can create their own summaries. Difference being they don't have access to edit it. Only teachers have access to edit it. So Simona asks, will every tutor teacher be obligated to use AI tool in the future? Obligated is an interesting word because I think most teachers will want to use AI tools in the future because they are going to save time, and it's sort of if teacher A is using AI tools and they're creating quizzes and they're creating summaries and they're creating lessons and they're creating notes and they're doing all that quickly and easily and better, and then I'm doing it manually and it takes me a long time and it's slower and maybe not as inventive or something like that, then am I obligated to use the AI tool? Not really, but I probably need to keep up with my colleagues, and in that way I sort of need to use AI tool is how I'll put that. Italki will never be like, you have to use AI lesson summary. I don't. We're going to offer it to you guys. You can use it if you want. Cool. Uh, Lieberman, the Lieberman family. We wanted to focus on the AI lesson summary because that's where my expertise is. But as I tried to give you some other tools to use here, and I tried to talk most of my time about AI in general. So, and to try to talk about some misconceptions with AI. Sorry that you feel that way. uh, Chris, has Italki any plans to offer chatbots, grammar, pronunciation correction bots? I won't talk too much about future plans for AI at Italki. Um, to my knowledge, not right now, but that's changing daily. So we can't give you like literally they had a meeting today and it could have changed. I don't know. I didn't follow up with them on the meeting from today. Uh, yeah. Um, Soziaco. Okay, I can say Soziaco. Thanks. Okay, guys. If there are, I don't see a whole lot of other questions or anything like that. With that, if there are no other pressing questions, we are at 45 minutes, so that's usually a good stopping point for our webinars today. I do want to thank you guys for coming in today, taking the time to listen and learn about our AI and stuff like that. If you have further questions, we're always over on the teacher forum. We have been having a discussion there in the announcements section in the Q2 business announcements. You guys can come over there, ask us some questions. I'll be there to answer some things. So will Suming and some of the other members of the team, okay? All right, guys. I want to thank everyone once again so much, and we'll see you guys later. Good luck and happy teaching, all right?